Hello students, this is your economics teacher Ayana. I hope you are well and utilizing the time wisely.
In the previous class, you learned about Chapter 8, Indian Economy Before and After Independence. Today, you are going to learn about Chapter 9, Development Experiences in India. First, we will discuss Agricultural Produce Market Committee, Trade Reforms, Special Economic Zones and Goods and Service Tax. Students, watch this video very carefully till the end. Fine, let us enter into the topics. Students, take the page number 195. Agricultural Produce Market Committee. Agricultural Produce Market Committee is a statutory body constituted by state government in order to trade in agricultural or horticultural or livestock product. Functions of APMC. Functions of APMC are: first, to promote public-private partnership in the ambit of agricultural market. Second, to provide market-led extension services to farmers. Third, to bring transparency in pricing system and transaction taking place in market in a transparent manner. Fourth, to ensure payments to the farmers for the sale of agricultural produce on the same day. Fifth, to promote agricultural activities. Sixth, to display data on arrivals and rate of agricultural produce from time to time into the market. Next, trade reforms. Trade policy reforms. The main features of the new trade policy as it has evolved over the years since 1991 are as follows. First, free imports and exports. Prior in 1991, in India, imports were regulated. From 1992, imports were regulated by a limited negative list. For instance, the trade policy of 1st April 1992 freed imports of almost all intermediate and capital goods. Only 71 items remained restricted. This would affect the domestic industries. Second, rationalizations of tariff structure and removal of quantitative restrictions. The Sellaiah Committee report has suggested drastic reduction in import duties. It had suggested a peak rate of 50%. As a first step towards a gradual reductions in the tariff, the 1991-92 budget has reduced the peak rate of import duty from more than 300% to 150%. The process of lowering the customs tariffs was carried further in successive budget. This also affected the domestic industries. Next, exports and import policy. The Government of India, Ministry of Commerce and Industry announced new foreign trade policy on 1st April 2015 for the period of 2015-20. Salient features of EXIM policy 2015 up to 2020. The new EXIM policy has been formulated focusing on increasing in export scenario, boosting production and supporting the concept like Make in India and Digital India. First, reduce export obligation by 25% and give boost to domestic manufacturing, supporting the Make in India concept. Second, as a step to Digital India concept, online procedure to upload digitally signed document by CA, CS, cost accountant are developed and further mobile app for filling tax, stamp duty has been developed. Third, repeated submission of physical copies of documents available on exported importer profile is not required. Fourth, export obligation period for export items related to defense, military store, aerospace and nuclear energy to be 24 months. Last, EXIM policy 2015 up to 2020 is expected to double the share of India in world trade from present level of 3% by the year 2020. This appears to be too ambitious. Next, you are going to learn about Special Economic Zone. With a view to overcome the shortcomings experienced on account of the multiplicity of controls and clearances, absence of world-class infrastructure and an unstable fiscal regime, and with a view to attract larger foreign investment in India. The Special Economic Zone policy was announced in April 2000. As part of the economic reforms, the system of taking over land by the government for commercial and industrial purpose was introduced in the country. As per the Special Economic Zone Act of 2005, the government has so far notified about 400 such zones in the country. Since the special economic zones deprives the farmers of their land and livelihood, it is harmful to agriculture. In order to promote export and industrial growth in line with the globalization, the special economic zone was introduced in many countries. India was one of the first in Asia to recognize the effectiveness of the export processing zone, a model in promoting exports with Asia's first EPZ set up in Kandla in 1965. The broad range of special economic zones covers free trade zones, export processing zones, industrial parks, economic and technology development zones, high-tech zones, science and innovation parks, free ports, enterprise zones and others. Major objectives of special economic zones. First, to enhance foreign investment, especially to attract foreign direct investment and thereby increasing GDP. Second, to increase shares in global export. Third, to generate additional economic activity. Fourth, to create employment opportunities. Fifth, to develop infrastructure facilities. Sixth, to exchange technology in the global market. Main characteristics of special economic zone. Geographically demarked area with physical security, administered by single body or authority. Streamlined procedures, having separate customs area, governed by more liberal economic laws. Greater freedom to the firms located in special economic zones. As a result, they need not respect the government's rule and regulation. Their social and environmental impact were disasters. Last, we will discuss fiscal reforms and goods and service tax. A key element in the stabilization effects was to restore fiscal disciplines. It means reductions of fiscal deficit to the extent of just 3% of GDP as suggested by fund bank policies. In this way, the budget aimed at containing government expenditure and augmenting revenues, reversing the downtrend in the share of direct tax to the total tax revenue and curbing conspicuous consumption. Some of the important policy initiatives introduced for correcting the fiscal imbalances were reduction in fertilizer subsidy, abolition of subsidy on sugar, and disinvestment of part of the governmental equity holding in select public sector undertaking. Gradually, expenditure on welfare measures, tax on corporate sectors were reduced, and tax on poor people were increased. Last, goods and service tax. Goods and service tax GST is defined as the tax levied when a consumer buys a good or service. It is proposed to be a comprehensive indirect tax levied on manufacture, sales and consumptions of goods as well as services. Goods and service tax aims to replace all indirect taxes levied on goods and service tax by the Indian central and state governments. Goods and service tax would eliminate the cascading effects of taxes on the productions and distributions of goods and services. It also a one-point tax, unlike a value-added tax, which was a multi-point tax. The Goods and Service Tax Act was passed in the Parliament on 29th March 2017. The Act came into effect on 1st July 2017. The motto is One Nation, One Market, One Tax. Advantages of Goods and Service Tax: removing cascading tax effect, single point tax, higher threshold for registration, composition scheme for small business, online simpler procedure under GST, defined treatment for e-commerce, increased efficiency in logistics, regulating the unorganized sectors. That's all for today. We will continue in the next class. Finish the assignment by clicking the link below.
You